I call this meeting to order. This is a regular business meeting of the Redmond City Council held on Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, commencing at 7 p.m. I will be chairing this meeting as Mayor Pro Tem. I will call roll, starting with Council Vice President Forsyth.
Here.
Councilmember Fields.
Here.
Councilmember Salahuddin.
Here.
Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
Councilmember Nueva Camina.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
The first item on the agenda is items from the audience. There are no special orders from the day. I have the sign-in sheet for members of the public to speak tonight. When I read your name, you'll come up to the podium and you have 3 minutes to address the council. Council members generally will not respond to comments or questions directly at the meeting. Members of the public are welcome to email the council anytime at mayorcouncil@redmond.gov. The views stated by members of the public do not represent the opinion of the Redmond City Council or the City of Redmond. As a reminder, RCW 4217A.555 prohibits any public comment during the council meeting in support or opposition of ballot propositions, measures, or candidates. The first person on the agenda, we have 5 people signed up to speak in person, and we have 1 person signed up to speak remotely. The first person on the agenda is Hank Myers, then Paul Quinn, then Ira Maben. Mr. Myers. You may begin. You may begin.
Okay. Good evening. Budget year. Sorry? Start again? Okay. Good evening. As a council and individuals, you face an enormous challenge in this next year. Every even year is a budget year, but this year the council has the lowest total experience of any council in memory. When I joined the council, there were 3 very active and dedicated members who each had at least 12 years of experience. This is not criticism, because your election may represent voter dissatisfaction with past practices. I'm looking forward to fresh ideas and suggestions. We have significant issues, such as having the lowest pavement quality index in the last 30 years, and I can't recall the last time my street was swept. I have provided copies of The Price of Government, the Bible for budgeting by priorities that the council adopted 15 years ago. I think I've given copies to each of you, or you're aware of them, but if you haven't got one, let me know. You have a few months to read it before the heavy lifting begins. Remember that you are the policy makers for the city, and the budget is your budget. The mayor and the staff will give you suggestions to start with, but if you disagree or think other things are more important, get it out there in the open and make decisions as a council. There are 2 important things about the price of government. First, it lets you set the relative priorities of various budget items. Second, it tells you what Redmond's price of government is relative to its neighboring cities. The price of government is the local tax burden relative to the total household income of the city. When I was on the council, Redmond had the highest price of government on the east side. If you have questions, ask for help from impartial sources. Inside City Hall, you have Kelly Cochran, who is not only extremely bright and experienced, but very trustworthy. Get outside of your silo. Talk to friends, neighbors, people you don't know and may not agree with. We have a tremendous business community here and many dedicated nonprofits. Listen to them. Finally, get involved in community activities. Go to the parks on Saturday and drive the streets at 3 a.m. in the morning to see where the parking problems are. Join a service club, such as Rotary or Kiwanis. They both do great work in the community and are great sources for information. Show that you are doing this for the good of the community. If you are lucky, people will start recognizing you on the street, for better or worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Paul Quinn.
Good
You
evening.
may begin.
I live in Sammamish. I think you know that. I care about recycling and composting and reducing what we send to the landfill. What I'm sharing about Redmond came through public record requests. Let's start with a reminder on that important fact from the King County survey that the trash sent to the landfill shows that 2/3 of it can be recycled or composted. So 2/3 of our trash is actually not trash. I'm going to walk you through the first of three handouts. It's this one that Cheryl gave you. The first table reflects the tonnage disposed of by categories for 2022 and year-to-date 2023. Notably, commercial businesses have the highest tonnage disposed of in the city at 38%. The second table down shows the city's tonnage and how it's disposed of. Most notably, 58% of what the city disposes of goes to the landfill, and that amount increased over 2022. This is a good time to note that if 58% is going to the landfill, only 42% of what we dispose of is diverted to recycling or composting. The third table down shows our diversion rate for each category. Of note, while single-family residences divert 65% to recycling and composting, commercial and multifamily locations only divert 34% and 38% respectively. So essentially 2/3 of what our commercial and multifamily locations dispose of goes directly to the landfill. Table 4 reflects the missed opportunity I noted at the start of my talk. 2 out of every 3 pounds we put in the landfill could be recycled or composted. Given that Redmond could have diverted over 18,000 additional tons to recycling or composting in 2023 alone. The next section down reflects the urgency that I find in this topic, as Redmond sends each month another 1,680 tons to the landfill. In Table 5 at the bottom, you see the categories listed, and the red indicates where the category does not have a recycle container and where the category does not have a food scrap yard waste container. It is striking most of the city's businesses, 720 of them, do not have food scraps yard waste containers. This in a city with over 400 restaurants. It is more striking that 82 of our 127 multifamily locations, that's 2/3, don't have a place for their residents to put their composted food scraps. 2/3. Handouts 2 and 3 provide recommendations for improving our diversion rates. I'll review those in detail at a future meeting. I believe the people in the city of Redmond want to live sustainably. They need the tools and they need to receive individual feedback about how they're doing, like the PSC Energy Report we receive now. Feedback is a catalyst for change. I'd like to receive response. Thanks.
The next person is Ira Maven.
Munch, I just have horrible handwriting.
Apologies.
It's up. Guess I should have wrote all this stuff down, huh? Thanks for having me out. I'd like to talk about the parking for employees in Redmond. Right now, there are 3 spots that employees in Redmond can park at. That is street parking. With the new laws, you have to change your parking spot in an 8-hour shift 4 times. You're only allowed two hours per, and you have to change it to a different street name. That's very difficult. The other spot is you can do the garages, like Platinum. That's who runs most of those. That's 2 hours, $6. That is $5 for every additional 30 minutes. That works out to a little over $2,000 a month. It's a little egregious for what we're looking for. The back parking lot behind Woodblock, the Sky Lot, for a normal shift for myself, it's about $10 a day, easy math, 5 days a week, $50, that's $200 a month. That's pretty high for our city. My suggestion, the other one, the easiest one, $55 for a Redmond parking pass through Diamond. The problem with that is I have one of those. In the wintertime, I can probably get about 50% of the time I can get one of those spots because they're very splattered throughout our community and they're full. In the summer, less than 20%. So what I was proposing is that we look at things like the back Sky Lot and section off an area where employees can buy a permit but have a guaranteed spot that they don't have to move their car, they don't have to pay $200 plus a month. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. David Morton.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm David Morton. As you diligently review the Redmond zoning code rewrite, I wish to draw your attention to a special zoning regulation pertaining to hazardous waste treatment and storage in the general commercial, business park, manufacturing park, and industry zones. The regulation stipulates hazardous materials shall not cause fumes, unpleasant odors, or harm to others in the course of normal handling. In these zones, it's foreseeable that certain businesses will produce hazardous waste as a byproduct of their regular operations. For example, auto body shops often generate dangerous waste that poses risks to both human health and the environment. These businesses often release hazardous solvent vapors into the outdoors, hoping that dilution of the fumes will weaken unpleasant odors or cause less harm to others. The revised Code of Washington recognizes the potential dangers associated with substances containing a solvent having the property of releasing toxic vapors or fumes. Inhalation of such fumes, whether intentional or unintentional, can lead to harmful conditions such as intoxication, dizziness, irrational behavior, dulled senses, or stupefaction, which is the condition of being unable to think clearly. My concern lies in understanding what recourse is available to residents and businesses when hazardous materials are handled in a manner that causes fumes, unpleasant odors, or harm to others. Is there a transparent process for reporting businesses that fail to comply with this regulation? I'd like to learn if Redmond has established mechanisms for addressing this issue and for encouraging businesses to comply with this regulation. I kindly request a response to my inquiry via email, phone call, text, or traditional mail, even if the response is to clarify whether Redmond enforces this regulation. Your attention to this matter would be greatly appreciated. Ensuring the proper handling of hazardous materials is crucial for Redmond's well-being and the preservation of our environment. Strict enforcement of the special regulation can help ensure a higher quality of life in Redmond. If the city receives complaints about a business whose hazardous materials are causing fumes, unpleasant odors, or harm to others, perhaps Redmond could take advantage of their partnership with the Department of Ecology in the Pollution Prevention Assistance Program. The program is dedicated to reducing and eliminating toxic chemicals in the environment, and they offer training and other resources to help businesses make the switch to safer, less toxic chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is David Haynes.
Hi, thank you. David Haynes, Overlake. I first want to address the fact that council has a really easy job. You're working a few hours a week. You need to have more work sessions with public comment for other people to contribute to the policies and problem solvings. And if you want to talk about the environment and the climate, take a consideration of deregulated apartment units where toxic gas is spewing out of the corner of the building. And you can't walk to the grocery store, you can't walk your dog on the sidewalk, and it fills up in between the buildings. And that's like, you know, like an alternative, non-toxic, independent from the grid energy justification. But the problem is like if you're trying to walk from the apartment complex in Overlake to the grocery store, that's a modern third world building deregulated building code violation that has negative impacts on the entire community. When you're trying to walk through from point A to point B, every step is on concrete or asphalt with road rage passing through. And there's chemical toxics that are sprayed on the parking lots, with or without rain or snow. And they act like you're doing you a favor. It's dogs and people and like little scooters, and it's just all over the place. And if you want to talk about environmental impacts, if you take 520's brand new off-ramp that comes flying through the back of Safeway, it's destroying another part of the quality of living that needs to be addressed with 21st century first world quality housing build-outs and commercial buildings that are more friendly to the residents and not the road rage driving through every block. But the thing is, I want to ask the mayor if she can hear this. With Sound Transit, they've been dishonest and abusive, and they've already caused delays, and they've squandered a lot of money, and now they're being abusive with the enforcements of the fares, spit spraying in your face, with or without your ticket. And you cannot get into the tunnel and take your money out because meth head junkie thieves are hiding and hanging out and smoking inside the building trying to rob you. And so when you go down closer to the train or on the train, you can't pay, but you get these abusive, racist, scorned, power-tripping fare ambassadors who want to get in your face, stand over you like it's Gestapo, commie, like, let's see your paper, whether you've paid or not. And when you ask them to address the evil criminals that you pass on the way in, they act like that's not their jurisdiction. And they won't network with the cops or Metro. And it's kind of like ridiculous to even have to put up with like the noise from the screeching brakes that come into the overlake that's going to ruin Estero Park and all those apartment complexes. It's going to have to listen to that every 10, 15 minutes, like a screaming, screeching metal, like fingernails on this chalkboard microphone, enhanced. And then, you know, the bells and the horns, it's ridiculous. But when you have junkies roaming around the
In
neighborhood.
conclusion?
All right, yeah. When you have like junkies roaming around the neighborhood, you need better like outreach. And we need like a focus on 21st century, first world quality redevelopments, not modern third world slums that are double, triple mortgages in this town that need to be shut down with a
Mr.
zero taken
Haynes,
off
your
their
time is
property
up.
values because they're ripping off the small businesses and ripping off the workers, and everybody keeps getting played against one another while the banks keep collecting off slum real estate in this town. It needs to have a redevelopment.
Mr. Haynes, your time is up.
An inner city commercial real estate who have bank owned that are paying off the government. We need more public comment to help you all get it right. Because you got neighborhoods that are ripping off and saying, oh, let's make Native American art the overlay ideal and do some Asian flair.
Mr. Haynes, your time is up. Thank you.
It needs to be torn down and redeveloped all around the overlake and elsewhere in this community.
Thank you. That is all of the in-person comments that we have. We have one person who has signed up to speak remotely, Joe Kunzler. The clerk will call him now.
Good evening.
Hi, Mr.
Hello?
Kunzler? Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes, I
you
can.
have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, President Kurtzer. Joe Kunzler here. Hopefully you've been reading my emails. In case you haven't heard, I'm calling in to concede my opposition to Sound Transit Board Member Ansel Bernie. I want to congratulate her here, as I did in my email. Get us back on track so we can replace apathy with allyship. We need to stop the hurt, start the healing, and the defending of our commons and our Jewish communities. It's time for Biden-esque leadership, where we love Sound Transit in America, win, lose, or draw. So congratulations again to the board member and Sound Transit board member Angela Bernie, and to you, President Kurtzer, for the presidency this year. But we still got a crisis in the Commons here. We got a crisis that was handed down by a hateful monster and the 2023 appeasement of such as the PDC and others are now well aware. We've also got a city council death squad going around the country attacking sacred public comment periods across America according to the ADL and me. I've done my own research. I've spent years researching public comment issues. As per my email today, as the PDC is overwhelmed with complaints, but I want to also enter this in the record here. I could be persuaded by President Kurtzer to argue to the PDC leadership that if you pass strong public comment rules and apologize to Bellevue leaders by or on your February 6th meeting, we could get this complaint dismissed. Provided the Redmond City Council passes strong public comment rules to put a stop to this. And it also gets me out of your airspace, which I'm sure you all would appreciate. I'm asking President Kurtzer for your support, please, and that the council foresees rules throughout 2024 for this plan. I have done some additional research, and there is a fair campaign practices code if Zimmerman comes before you guys and campaigns again. It's midnight for Redmond's comments. History will not be kind to Alex Zimmerman or Council Member Forsyth for her absolute incredible let's just say, what the actions that put this council in this crucible. For when we have departed from standing for the values of America and Washington State, we have always come to regret it. I am in this as long as it takes. It's just a question of how many consequences before we get Redmond properly armed to stop First Amendment's hate and abuse of public comment to slander you and other good people. As President Zelensky has said, quote, freedom must be better armed than tyranny, end quote. And in my heart and in my mind, not just as a disabled man, not just as an American, not just with someone with a Jewish relative, but as a fan of Sound Transit, Zimmerman is an agent of the same hateful tyranny of Trump and Russia. Ultimately, this is your opportunity, President Kurtzer, to put your stamp on things, and I want you to have that opportunity. That's why when I wrote that PDC complaint, I wrote it for
And in
audience,
conclusion?
too. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm going to ask that the City Council pass strong public comment rules in the mold of Sound Transit or the Port of Seattle Commission. My time is up. I have strong support and faith in President Kurtzer's leadership, and congratulations again, Board Member Bernie. Thank you for your public service, all of you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Items from the audience is now closed. The next item on our business is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
The consent agenda has been moved by Council Vice President Forsyth and seconded by Councilmember Stewart. Are there any items to pull? Councilmember Fields?
I don't want to pull any items, but I would like a minute to speak to two of them.
I believe our practice is typically we'll take the vote and then you can speak. Would that be all right?
Of course.
Great. This is a roll call vote, starting with Council Vice President Forsyth.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
That passes 7-0. Aye. And now, Councilmember Fields, would you like to make your comments?
Wait, is that off or on? That's on. All right, thank you, Council President. So I am in support of the appointment for the facilities of our new council member. But I do want to remind council leadership that I had asked that the process was a little bit skewed, and I'm asking council leadership to make sure that we correct that process, and if there's any other appointments that council has the responsibility to make, that we address those and not do the backwards method that we used before.
Thank you, Councilmember Fields. I sent a message out to the council today in advance of this meeting as well with some details on this topic as well. But I will say for the public that I confirmed that this particular position we just voted on is a mayoral appoints and council confirms. So we did in this case follow the correct process. There was another issue that was raised during that discussion about a different body that we do appointments for, and that issue will be coming to committee next week, the Cascade Water Alliance. So we'll be seeing that item and that appointment through the correct process in committee next week.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. And with the passage of the consent agenda, we have a new design review board member, Samson Ng, who will be sworn in at a later time. Congratulations. Apologies, finding my script here. Our next item of business is a staff report. Oh, wait, am I missing this? Yes, no, this is correct. Okay. Our next item of business is the staff report. Planning Commission recommendation, Phase 2 amendments to the Redmond zoning and municipal codes. Carol Helen, Director of Planning and Community Development, will be introducing this item. Thank you all.
and members of the City Council. This evening, we're providing a staff report on the Redmond Zoning Code Rewrite Phase 2. These are minor amendments to the Redmond Zoning Code and the Municipal Code. And the staff report this evening is a follow-up to the December 5th Planning and Public Works Committee of the whole meeting, where we introduced the Planning Commission's recommendation on this topic. Questions raised at the December 5th meeting are incorporated into your issues matrix that is in the packet at attachment D. And following the staff report, we will note any additional questions and comments you may have for follow-up at your January 25th study session. I'm joined this evening for this item by Kimberly Dietz. She is our principal planner with Planning's Economic Development Division. Kim?
Thank you, Director Helen. Good evening, council members. Tonight, I will present Phase 2 amendments to the Redmond Zoning Code and Municipal Code. The purpose of this evening is first to present the Planning Commission's recommendation on amendments to the zoning code, and then also the Technical Committee's recommendations to amendments to the municipal code. We would also, at the end of the presentation, like to hear your questions and comments that will help us prepare for your study session on January 23rd. The Redmond Zoning Code rewrite is a multi-year, multi-phase project, and you can see on this image that it crosses over many, many years, over 4 phases. It is handled under an umbrella of the Redmond 2050 periodic update to our comprehensive plan, and it looks to the comprehensive plan for its direction in updating policies to make sure they are consistent with, to update regulations to make sure they are consistent with city policies. So this evening, you are hearing information regarding Phase 2. Phase 1 of this rewrite was adopted June 22. And Phase 3 is also underway, with staff starting to prepare some work and scoping additional items to bring to you in later years. The purpose of the rewrite is to streamline the code, to make sure that it is clear and concise, to address city priorities, and while doing so, to avoid creating errors and inconsistencies. And you can see here listed the Redmond 2050. Again, we take our leadership from the policies that are established therein. We also look to the community strategic plan and other working plans to guide the amendments that would address city priorities. The staff who lead the amendments are across Planning, Public Works, and the Parks Department, as well as the Executive Department. And they look to these documents and other leading documents, such as functional plans, to obtain the direction for updating regulations. Our community involvement was vast, and it happened over the course of 2 years in order to finalize the staff recommendation for the amendments that are before you. We use many methods to reach our stakeholders and the community. For an example, we have developed an e-news channel that is specific to plans and policies and regulations as they are updated, as well as events that people can attend to advise these amendments or the work therein. We also use direct mail to parties of record. At this time, we have over 100 parties of record for this topic. We also have 1,650 subscribers to our e-news channel. So on a monthly basis and as required by our regulations, we reach out to these individuals to keep them apprised of this project. In addition to that outreach, we also use some feedback methods to allow people to use digital tools and meetings to provide specific feedback. Let's Connect, for an example, was one. And we also incorporated a web page form for people to use to provide a comment at any time on the code and to pursue a change. One of the items, beekeeping, was obtained from the community through that method. And then some of the feedback we received specific to this amendment series includes waivers for daycares. We also received some comments that you heard about tonight from Mr. Morton regarding prohibited activities in the CARA. And then finally, one of the amendments regarding fences, we received some additional feedback in order to install safety fences. Those are just a couple examples of what we heard. This project, Phase 2, started in 2021, and you can see the milestones here that reflect the different opportunities that staff has to connect with both internal and external stakeholders. As we move from concept through the final staff proposal, staff checks in with leadership, we check in with the community, and particularly our stakeholders, which are developers, their legal teams, businesses, and property owners, to make sure we're going in the right direction with each of the amendments. The package as a whole includes many more amendments than what you are reviewing tonight. You are reviewing the minor amendments, or what we call an annual cleanup. The others that are shown here are policy related and therefore are will be provided to you by Redmond 2050. Becky Fry and her team will be providing these specific amendments as they align with the different topics that Redmond 2050 is addressing with you. For example, transportation is ones that you will see soon, and the amendments to the code will come along with that package. So for this evening, you are seeing the minor amendments, and those are listed here. These include very minor changes for clarity, but they also include consistency with our state regulations. They also address input from the community that we've received, and they look to the region to make sure that we are consistent with some of the trends and other ways that functional plans and that regulations help people develop throughout the city. During your December 5th Planning and Public Works Committee of the Whole, council members shared a few of the questions that are listed here. Most of them are addressed in your issues matrix that is in your packet for this evening's meeting. One of them is not, and we look forward to providing more information in that regard to you during your study session. And tonight, what we'd like to hear is if there are additional questions or comments that you have for us to prepare. Your study session is on January 23rd, and the next time that you will see this item is on February 20th for your action. Thank you for listening this evening, and we look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Ms. Dietz and Director Helen. Really appreciate the overview leading into our study session next week. And I loved the story in the materials of the beekeeping and how that came to be and where we are today. My question for next week is really just to make sure we get a chance to cover the topic that has been raised, the community concerns, as well as this council's historic interest in preserving the Cara and just making sure that we're not leaving anything to chance. So I would love to spend a little time in the study session. What were the concerns that arose? What are the concerns that arose around the Cara from the community and the Planning Commission and others? How were they addressed? And what wasn't addressed because either that was the inappropriate venue or is still being figured out or will be part of another process another time? It would still be good to know if there are things left undone, where those lie and where we can pick up on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Salahuddin.
Yeah, thank you so much for providing, this level of depth, and I'm really appreciative of the community outreach that you've done. I think all of that level of involvement is really positive for getting the community's feedback. I had a question around you mentioned the e-news, and I'm seeing, the direct mail, email, one-on-one meetings. Do you have any information in terms of demographics or who is actually being reached out to or who is subscribed? Just knowing that we have such a diverse community with different living situations, different ages, different backgrounds, making sure that everyone's voice is heard for these topics is really important. So for next week, would love to hear, if you have that data, the level of diversity across the board of the feedback that's provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you, and thanks for the follow-up. I know the majority of those questions were mine, so I appreciate that follow-up. On the beekeeping, on the signage, I think we need a little more clarity around the 2-inch letters. I think you intended for it to be the main warning to be the 2 inches, but the rest of the sign, as I were to read it as a person who does that design work, I would read it as all of the language needs to be 2 inches. So maybe just a little more clarity around that. I have a bunch of other questions that I will email to you all so that you can have that and have time to go over those. But I'm interested in talking about the parking conversation that came up, and we heard a little bit tonight on a different parking matter, but very interested in understanding the drive-through component and why we removed that square footage concern. And for the veterinary or animal services within a half mile, that just seems like a already potentially stressful situation for folks. And if there isn't parking readily available, that those businesses may suffer due to that. So I will email my questions to you, but just wanted to give you that preface of what they will be.
Thank you. Are there other questions from council members? Not seeing any, so I will ask my one question, which is I'm interested during the study session to hear a little bit more about the family daycare proposal. It seemed like, I'd love to know, it seemed to indicate that we're going to take an action now and then we'll review later, and we're going to be looking at how we align with state policy, and that we have the opportunity to either be more stringent or at the level of state policy. So we'd just love to get a little more clarity from you all on where we align compared to state policy in what's being proposed here, and then what the next steps or timeline might look like on that. Thank you. All right, seeing no other questions, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to that study session next week.
Thank you, and good evening.
Our next item of business is a staff report, Sound Transit Light Rail Briefing, project status and progress. Carol Helen, Director of Planning and Community Development, will be introducing this item.
Thank you again. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Kretzer and council members. I'm Carol Helland from Planning and Community Development. And this evening, we're providing a staff report describing the current and upcoming status of light rail in Redmond. I'm joined this evening by 2 senior engineers from the city. Micah Ross is going to start the presentation, and he is in the Planning and Community Development Department. And then Aaron Noble is going to do the second half of the presentation, and he is one of our Public Works staff. And because this isn't a study session, if there are questions afterwards, we can always collect those and provide those back to you at a future date in committee of the whole meeting or in an issues matrix and email. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Micah.
Great, thank you, good evening. As Carol said, we're presenting an update on Eastlink and Downtown Redmond Link Extension project for Sound Transit. Our timeline here, the last year has seen closure of numerous site development permits, building, mechanical, plumbing, all the permitting for both of these stations. In the fall of last year, we saw the opening of the bus loop and parking garage at the Redmond Technology Station. We're here at the beginning of 2024. We're looking forward to this spring, the opening of the 2 line, which will run from Bellevue to Redmond Technology Station. At the Overlake Village Station, some of the activities this last year was Da Vinci Avenue, which is the road you see in the photo here. It was dedicated to the city through a binding site plan. There are some easements that went along with that as well. The Regional Stormwater Infiltration Vault, which treats and infiltrates stormwater from the region, was brought online. It's in service now. You can't see it, it's all underground here, a large structure, but that's a great addition. We also have the Overlake Village Station pedestrian bridge, will be opening January 24th, which I know everyone has been eagerly anticipating. The Redmond Technology Station garage. As I mentioned, the bus loop opened in September with the Metro service change, and that's been running smoothly since. There was a ribbon cutting, which the mayor attended for the parking garage to the community on October. And the station platform on the right side of the photo here will be open in the spring when service begins on the 2 line. The final piece that I'm sharing here this evening is the Redmond Technology Station Bridge. This isn't built by Sound Transit, but rather Microsoft has built this, and it will be dedicated to the city once it's completed. Microsoft is completing what's known as the West Landing. That's on the west side of the bridge. This is expected to be open in the spring as well when light rail service begins. And this also has the direct access to the station. And with that, I'll hand over to Aaron.
Good evening. Here we are showing some of the upcoming milestones on the downtown Redmond Link Extension project. First, what you see is the opening of the 40th underpass. We wanted to highlight this project because it will be the first area that will be fully constructed and accepted by the city. We anticipate the acceptance to be in early spring. Next is the opening of the Redmond Central Connector Trail for Derby Days this summer. There will still be some construction around the downtown station, but the trail will be fully open to the public. In 2025, we'll see the opening of the entire Link Extension project with service beginning between downtown Redmond and Overlake. The service to Seattle and beyond should begin later in 2025. Sound Transit estimates the total project completion for the DRLE is about 80%. The DRLE project consists of many projects throughout Redmond, and we're highlighting some of the main construction activities throughout the corridor. At Northeast 60th, 2 new bike lanes are being installed with a new connection to Benjamin Rush Elementary. At Northeast 51st, a water service infrastructure project was completed by Sound Transit at the behalf of the city. It's known as what's known as a city betterment project. This project is fully operational and improves the city water infrastructure at Northeast 51st. Additionally, at Northeast 51st, there are additional roadway improvements being constructed and the installation of 2 more bike lanes. Surface and traffic improvements at Northeast 40th are under construction that will facilitate greater connections to the Redmond Technology Center. This work includes a pathway underneath Northeast 40th that's allowed pedestrians to cross from the transit center to the north side of Northeast 40th across 6 without crossing the 6 lanes of traffic there. At the Millmore Village Station, it's a major transit connection to Redmond. They are constructing a 1,400 stall parking garage. There'll be 24 bike racks and 36 on-demand bike lockers. At Northeast 70th and Northeast 76th Street, city betterment projects are building improvements, which include a shared use path and bicycle pathway from Redmond Way to Northeast 173rd, and installation of new bike lanes and a new turn lane at Northeast 76th. The East Lake Sammamish Trail connection is just getting underway, but when completed, it will create a connection at the Bear Creek Trail, East Lake Sammamish, and Redmond Central Connector Trail system. The downtown Redmond station will be the main access to light rail from downtown Redmond. The primary work is construction of the transit station, but there is also an extension of the Redmond Central Connector city betterment. And this next slide, what we kind of wanted to show you is what we think it may look like if somebody comes from Seattle or from Overlake on their lunch and they want to go to downtown Redmond on the light rail. And so they'll come from the east and get off here at Northeast 70th at the Marymore Station. From there, they can proceed on foot or by bicycle down the, hang on. Oh, I see what's going wrong. Apologize. Oh no. Let's see. Well, what we're going to show here, though I'm having some technical difficulties, is as you can, so this picture here shows the new Northeast 70th shared use path connection. From there, users can turn left and continue north, and at the next star there, that's where we would show the new pedestrian bridge across Bear Creek, where they can, and they'll continue on there until they get to the Redmond Central Connector. We do show a picture of the new architectural concrete at the Bear Creek Trail and the Redmond Central Connector, where they can continue on bike down the Bear Creek Parkway Trail down the scenic route there, or they continue north from. Don't want to do it. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, there we go. There we go. Maybe it was just kind of frozen. So there we go. Here we show the new Bear Creek pedestrian and bicycle bridge. As they continue going north, they'll get to the. This shows a new architectural concrete there at the Redmond Central Connector and Bear Creek Trail. That's where they can continue to head south there on Bear Creek, or they can continue north towards downtown Redmond, where they'll pass the downtown station as they continue through the to Redmond Town Center up to the downtown park. Now, what we wanted to show that we just kind of thought this was really cool is people can come from all the way from Seattle or further. They can explore all the amenities of Redmond, get onto our trail system, but never once have to get in a car to do it. And so that's what we were trying to demonstrate there. I apologize for the issues. I think that's all for our update, Carol. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Even with the technical difficulties, great to be able to see some of those photos and hear about the great infrastructure. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Fields?
Exciting times, thank you. Can you provide us a list of the betterment, the complete list of the betterment projects that were identified and the status of, you mentioned some of them, but I just wanted to see the complete list, what their status is, under budget, over budget, and I guess for extra credit, you don't have to do this, but it'd be interesting to know what lessons we've learned from other cities where light rail has been opened, where we have sort of a draft list of needs that we might consider, especially with the budget year coming up. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Salahuddin?
Thank you. And I'm really excited. Thank you so much for this presentation. My question is around the last mile options, and if you'd be able to provide, options for bus routes that might be, or other forms of public transportation, maybe van pools that might be available at each of these transit centers or stations for the light rail, and at which point during the process would those be finalized, whether before completion of the stations or, throughout that process or even at the tail end. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And through the chair, I have a request for my colleague to the left, who is now the chair of our Public Safety Committee of the Whole. And I just think that one of the community concerns coming into the spring and later next year has been around public safety. And so as we go into this next quarter, it'd be really great in that committee if we could hear an update from public safety on what their kind of approach is going to be to the opening in March and the opening of some of these new facilities. Thanks.
Thank you. Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. Tangentially related, but definitely related. I've heard a lot of questions about the entry ramp onto 520 right there just under the overpass. And I know that was a WashDOT project, but I've heard a lot of complaints lately about that transition kind of launching you a bit. So I'm interested to know, is that work done? And if it is, what we're going to be doing about that, and any more information that you can provide to us.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? All right. Well, I will just make one comment, which is thank you so much for all of the hard work that you're doing and that everyone who's been working on this project is doing. I know people in the community are really excited about these stations opening and about all the related infrastructure. It's been a while where we've been having also these quarterly updates as we've been building. And I think to some of the comments and questions tonight, as we get to the reality of these stations opening, I think it might make sense for us as council leadership to think about putting a study session where we can have a little bit more of a conversation on these items and thinking about how we prepare for the light rail, and potentially a great topic for our council retreat. Councilmember Salahuddin?
I'm so sorry. One more question popped into my mind, and it's sort of related to what Councilmember Fields brought up, in that after the opening of the first phase, could we come back to look at anything that was done well, or problems, concerns, positive input that we learned from that specific opening, and relay it onto the next stages and the next phases, so that we can be best prepared, not only from public safety, but from all facets.
Thank you so much. And last thing before we close out this item is you mentioned this briefly, but I wanted to just note for the public that next week on Wednesday, January 24th at 10 a.m., we'll be having a ribbon cutting for the Overlake Village Bridge, and that's at the Bridge Plaza at 2891 152nd Ave Northeast in Redmond. So join us there. It'll be really exciting to get to see that bridge. And with that, I think we're done with this item, unless you have any other comments, Director Helen.
I just wanted to say that the culmination of this project is over a decade of planning. And Redmond was so far ahead in its thought about creating areas that actually drew the excitement and support from Sound Transit to essentially extend the link to the East Link into downtown Redmond, that you're now seeing the fruits of the council that came before you, the continuation of the good work that you've been doing as we've been updating the comprehensive plan and essentially leveraging that public investment, and then all the work of the staff. Aaron and Micah work very hard on Sound Transit. It's a major part of their work plan, and this is only two of the staff that are dedicated to making this project deliver on time and consistent with what the council envisioned and was approved in the permits. So I just want to extend my gratitude to council and their foresight and their hard work and commitment, and also to all the staff that have worked so hard on this project. To really see it become a reality in March for the first piece is very exciting.
Well, thank you very much, Director Helen, and agreed, I'll echo that gratitude to past leaders, past staff, and current staff for all that hard work, as well as to our current leadership. And with that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Our next item of business is the Ombuds report. Councilmember Fields, you are the Ombuds for the month of January. Would you like to give your report?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Not a whole lot of items, but I'll cover them here. We had one email that came about a shock in parking when a person returned from a long trip. I went to the person, asked them where they parked, and they said at the Redmond Municipal Airport in Redmond, Oregon. Thank you, Director Helen, for pointing that out to me. I wished him luck on paying more than twice what he thought he was going to pay. We did get a reminder from a resident about keeping our sidewalks safe during winter weather, and the planning department is working on a response for that. We also, speaking of winter, got a very detailed request to understand the plan, the emergency plan, if the weather is bad and people who need warming centers, how do they get there, what's available to them. There was a response. There's responses ongoing. And that one I will follow up at the next Ombuds report on how that turns out. We did hear from a resident. I don't even know if he's a resident, but we heard from someone tonight about our public testimony and what we allow and don't allow. I won't repeat much because I think the 3 minutes testimony that we heard earlier covered pretty much what had been sent to the council. And on the flip side, I had made a question to council leadership and to the mayor on some of the public testimony that we'd been getting, and specifically that we got in the first meeting in January. And I posed the question, is this potentially slander, and does the city have a responsibility here? And definitely got some feedback from a few residents that they don't want to restrict public testimony and free speech, and I don't think anybody on the council wants to do that either. I reminded them that I didn't say I wanted to restrict, I said that I wanted to make sure that we had it right. So I think the council leadership is still expecting that we will look again and work with our mayor's office to see if we need to make any changes on that. And there was one more. That's it. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Stewart was the ombuds for December. Councilmember Stewart, did you have any items that you didn't get to report yet from that?
December feels so long ago. I do not believe I have anything lingering. Thank you.
Great. Council Vice President Forsyth?
Thank you. I had some conversations with folks around a variety of topics, including scooters and e-bikes and blocking pedestrian paths, the upcoming legislative agenda bill, and the upcoming legislature and their bills that are coming up. I had requests to speak on some of the legislative bills, specifically around housing. I had a question about our salary commission and what was occurring with that, and if there's anything else coming down the pike for that. And lots of community conversations around burst pipes due to the frigid weather that we have been having. And I think there's some conversations we may need to have around that as a council, around climate and how we are likely to see more of this in the future.
Councilmember Fields?
I did find one more. So there was a resident that wrote in, was pretty unhappy with the service at the Redmond pool, had been trying to get their daughter registered for swim lessons and felt like they were not getting straightforward answers. I am waiting to hear from our Parks Department as a response, and I will also follow up with that one.
Thank you. Are there any other ombuds reports? Seeing none, I will note that I met with a couple different residents who wanted to speak with me about city issues. One resident wanted to talk about additional tenant protections and filling in on what we've previously passed. Also spoke with some residents about our crisis response plan and how we plan to advance on that program or potentially join the regional crisis response program and some of the follow-up to what we passed last year. And finally, I'll note that inspired by Councilmember Stewart, who's been holding office hours for quite a while, I am launching my own office hours on Fridays from 3 to 5, in particular, open coffee with the council president from 3 to 4 at Soul Food Coffee on the first and third Friday of every month. So come talk with me, or if you want to have more of a appointment of office hour, I'm happy to schedule you in around that time slot as well. Thanks. Any others? Okay. With that, our next item is committee reports. Are there any committee reports this evening? Council Vice President Forsyth.
Thank you. Myself, Councilmember Salahuddin, and Council President Kritzer attended the East Side Transportation Partnership, where we set the agenda for the year ahead and had some great conversation around all the things that we can be doing and will be doing in the coming year.
Any other committee reports? Councilmember Stewart?
Thank you. I attended the Growth Management Planning Board and the Sound Cities Association caucus. I'll be chairing that caucus this year. We had a couple of briefings. One was a discussion from a group called the Black Home Initiative out of Civic Commons at the Seattle Foundation. We are not in their geographic scope of focus, but it was an interesting conversation, not necessarily on policy or housing-related policy, but on the network that it will take to increase Black home ownership in the region of focus that they have. So lots of great allyship opportunities, as well as just conversation to continue to have. Again, Redmond has studied our middle housing and our racial equity in housing and our city's role in all of that. And that is something that a lot of cities are just now beginning to dig into in a big way. We also had a briefing from the Washington State Housing Finance Commission on the implementation of the Covenant Home Ownership Act. This is a pretty unique tool. There's a lot of eyes on it to make sure, or to see how it performs. Nationally, I mean. So this is a really special credit program that is going to help the state take ownership for its role in housing discrimination of the past. And the funding for it is, of course, a $100 fee on all real estate transactions across the state, and those are down a little bit right now. So that is a little bit of unfair weather on the horizon that was less expected or less hoped for, just in terms of getting to full implementation. But we do know that our special purpose credit will be for first-time homeowners, home buyers with an income of less than 100% of AMI. A couple of other just briefings, and that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other committee reports? Okay. Well, with that, that item is closed. We have no unfinished business. We have no new business. We do not have an executive session. So that concludes our business items for this meeting. And if there is no objection to adjourning, this meeting is adjourned.